Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I am so excited to finally be sharing with you my spooky October TBR. I always save the best books for October. Creepy, spooky books are my favorite, and I have a lot of really fun videos planned this month that I'm so excited for. So I have 14 books on this TBR. They range from different types of spooky. Some of them are more like fun spooky, some of them are outright horror, scary, keep you up at night. But before I get into the books on my TBR, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor for this video, Skillshare. So if you haven't heard of Skillshare, it is an online learning community with thousands of classes covering many creative skills. There are classes for drawing, classes for bullet journaling, classes for photography. Skillshare is $10 a month, and I have a link in the description where you can get a 2-month free trial. I personally was very interested in the classes on iMovie. I've been using iMovie now to edit my videos for about 6 years, and I thought that I knew the full extent of iMovie, but there were a couple classes that I took and I learned brand new things that I did not know you could do in iMovie. I actually was able to update my October spooky intro that you saw at the beginning of this video. I was able to kind of update it a little bit and make it better than last year because of some of the skills that I learned. Like I mentioned, the link for the 2-month free trial will be in the description. So now moving into my TBR for October, let's just start. This first book is probably the one that I'm the most excited for, and that is The Whisper Man by Alex North. This is a thriller that takes place in this town where many years ago there was a serial killer called the Whisper Man who would murder children, and in order to get them out of their homes, he would go to their bedroom window and whisper outside of it. The Whisper Man was caught. Now it's many years later, and this father and son have moved to the town, and new children are starting to go missing, and the cases are very similar to what happened when the Whisper Man was around, and the main character's son is starting to hear these whispers at night. The next book on my TBR is Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. This follows a bunch of horror authors who decide to get together and go on an overnight trip to one of the most famous haunted houses in the world. And it's supposed to be just kind of a publicity thing of all these famous horror writers going and staying in this famous haunted house, but it turns out that the house is actually haunted, and it turns very dangerous and creepy very quickly. This sounds really cool. I love the idea of a bunch of authors going to this haunted house. I love haunted house stories. Some of my favorite horror movies are ones that are about a haunted house, so I am very excited for this one. Next book is one that I have put on several TBRs. I think it was on my October TBR last year, and that is Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. Sawkill Girls is a YA horror about, I believe, 3 or 4 girls that live in this place called Sawkill Rock. There are stories about this very evil monster that lives among everyone at Sawkill Rock, and the monster has been taking girls for many years, and no one has fought against the monster. And now these girls are going to do just that. And I also know that there is a female-female relationship in this book, I think. I'm very excited for this, although I am lowering my expectations a little bit because I have DNF'd 2 books by this author before. Hopefully 3rd time's the charm. I know I keep saying that I'm so excited for all these books, but the next book I'm so excited for, and that is The Girl in Red by Christina Henry. The Girl in Red is a horror post-apocalyptic retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. And if that doesn't already have you hooked, the last line in the synopsis says, "Red doesn't like to think of herself as a killer, but she isn't about to let herself get eaten up just because she is a woman alone in the woods." I cannot wait to read this. It sounds like my perfect book, so I have very high hopes for this one. The next book I have also put on many TBRs. I've started it several times, but this book has my #1 fear. Out of all the books that I'm gonna read on this TBR, this is the one that I think is going to genuinely terrify me, and that is The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. This is a sci-fi horror that is about this mining expedition. The main character joins this expedition to go to another planet and mine in the caves. So basically the entire book is her alone in these very cramped spaces digging through this cave, and the only source of communication she has is the person in her earpiece who is supposed to be guiding her and giving her instructions, but the person isn't exactly who they say they are, and they're potentially lying to her. So my biggest fears are sensory deprivation and claustrophobia. So this is like my worst nightmare. I will never step foot in a cave. You could not pay me enough to go into a cave. So the fact that this entire book takes place deep in a cave really stresses me out, but I'm ready. I'm prepared to be scared. The next book on my TBR is His Hideous Heart, which is an anthology of retellings of Edgar Allan Poe's stories. There are so many great authors included in this. Rin Chupeco, Tessa Gratton, my queen, Emily Lloyd-Jones, Kendar Blake. So excited for this. I don't know yet how I'm gonna read it, if I'm gonna like just read it straight through or if I'm gonna read one story every day. We'll see. The next book on my TBR is The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd-Jones, and it is a YA horror historical fantasy, which is like, literally they just took my 3 favorite genres and like mixed them up. This takes place in a world where corpses rise and they are known as bone houses. So there is necromancy in this book, which is one of my favorite things. The main character is a grave digger, and that's all I really know about it. I don't think this book is gonna be like super scary, but I think it's gonna have like a spooky atmosphere, and obviously with the necromancy, it's gonna be a little bit spooky, so I'm very excited for this one. The next book on my TBR is The Monster of Elendhaven. I literally know nothing about this because it is a novella, so I don't like to know too much about novellas going into them, but I do know that this is a dark fantasy about a monster who is potentially seeking vengeance on people in this village. I'm excited. I've been seeing a lot of really great reviews for it. The next book is Teeth in the Mist by Dawn Kurtagich. This is another haunted house story. It takes place in 2 different timelines. One of them is about some friends who are very into haunted things. They are very intrigued by this old haunted house. The other timeline is in the 1800s about creepy stuff that happens in that house. I've been wanting to read something by this author for a long time. I know she writes a bunch of YA horror. So that is it for the books that I physically own, but I do have a couple more on my TBR that I will be checking out from the library. So the first one of those is The Twisted Ones by T. Knight Fisher. This actually comes out on October 1st. The blurb for this says that it is like a Blair Witch Project type of book. It's about this young woman who is clearing out her deceased grandmother's home, and she discovers all these secrets about this strange colony in the woods. This one sounds really creepy. I'm super excited. Anything that is compared to the Blair Witch Project, I'm very excited by, which actually brings me to my next book. So this one is Rules for Vanishing by Kate Alice Marshall. I recently heard someone describe this as being like the Blair Witch Project meets Every Heart a Doorway, which just sounds so much like my kind of book that I'm so mad I didn't know about it sooner. It takes place in kind of a faux documentary style, just like Blair Witch Project, and it's about this kind of old campfire story where once a year a path appears in the woods and whoever goes through that path disappears. And the main character, her sister was one of the girls who disappeared a year prior, and one day she gets this mysterious text from someone that says she needs to play the game in order to find her sister again. This just sounds really awesome and creepy. The next book on my TBR I think was also on my TBR last year. This one is Kingdom of Needle and Bone by Mira Grant, aka Shannon McGuire. This is a horror novella that basically takes place in like our world if the anti-vaxxers won. People stopped getting vaccinations, and just like that, a disease spread that turned everyone into zombies. I've only read one Mira Grant book before, and that was Into the Drowning Deep, and it's one of my all-time favorite books, so I'm very excited to read another book by her. And the last book on my TBR is The Girl from the Well by Rin Chupeco. I added this last minute to my TBR because it is the October pick for the Dragons and Tea Book Club, which is hosted by Melanie and Amy. The blurb for this says that it is Dexter meets The Grudge, and it is a Japanese ghost story. So those are all of these spooky books that I'm planning to read in October. I am just ready for the spooky season to begin. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video.